Episode of Candid, I'm joined by Graeme Lazarus, who is the MD of RAM Hand-to-Hand Couriers. You've probably seen RAM around with their red vehicles, but do you know how big they actually are? RAM has over 1,600 vehicles, more than 3,000 full-time staff members, and it operates across 29 locations in South Africa with 42 offices. Not to mention the fact that now that they've expanded into the rest of Southern Africa, they have really scaled over the last 35 years. In this discussion, Graeme is extremely honest about how the experience has been thus far and how tough it actually is working in the logistics industry. There's some real nuggets of wisdom that he does share that I really think will relate to anyone, no matter where they are in their professional journey. Enjoy this business conversation. Brilliant. So, Graeme, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Candid. And I think in terms of RAM as a business, everyone knows about it at a surface level, but I don't think they really know what's behind the business and the passion, the culture, and the leadership. So for today, I really want to jump into the practicalities of how the journey has been thus far within the business, and also to look at just how you've approached leading the business together with your brother David. If we just start specifically on the team right now, you mentioned to me before the recording that there's just over 3,000 people that are actually employed by RAM, and I think this is a very key distinction: is that RAM is a business in the courier distribution and warehousing side of things, but you actually employ your people. You're not using crowdsourcing. You're not using third parties. You actually have a fully employed team with the benefits that come with it. Just describe to me a bit about that decision, because for me, I consider that a strategy. From 1988 when your dad Nathan started it. Just describe to me how that has evolved over time since 1988.
Thank you so much. Just to go back a little bit, it started in 88, but primarily we were a freight forwarding and clearing company, handling valuable cargo, only valuable cargo. And I joined 94. In 97, we opened the domestic courier business because we were looking at a certain vertical, which was jewelry and diamonds and gold. And there wasn't a supplier, and majority of product used to be sent via the South African Post Office. And you know where that's going now. So that leads on to why the staff are really employed, because when we looked at our journey in the infancy and we were moving real value, we couldn't really subcontract it to anybody due to the insurance needs and the security infrastructure that we required. So in our journey, when we started, it was about an in-source model in what our real name is, and that's RAM Hand-to-Hand Couriers. It's hand-to-hand. It stays within the network. So our journey is about insourcing staff. It's about ensuring that staff have a continuity of a job. We have a lot of staff sitting in the 20-year mark, so they've really been working with us for a very long time. They're passionate. We do handle a sector of the market which a lot of people don't particularly want, which is more value and pilferageable items. We have moved into the generic e-commerce market because our trucks are going to these places almost every day. But in our journey, we ensure that we can act on our promise, and our promise is speed. And with speed comes security. And we're living in South Africa, and South Africa needs a security transporter. So that's where we find ourselves. Are we better? Are we not? Who knows? But our customers and our longevity of our customers over the many years prove that they want service, and prove that they want infrastructure, and prove that they want a closed network and not an open network. So that's where RAM really has come to find our niche.
I'm a big fan of and an advocate for the fact that it's people first. It's your team first, and as a consequence of that, your customers are going to benefit. And if you think about the certainty and the clarity that this has brought, where I could imagine a lot of the team members now, the majority of them probably feel that they're not just now a number. They don't just have to wait for a ping, and then to start earning. They actually have certainty at what they're going to wake up to tomorrow. And so for you, in terms of how you've seen the landscape change within, let's call it in a broad way, let's call it logistics, what for you have you found that is a negative of the level of growth within the logistics industry and using a third party business model?
So just want to talk about the staff, and we'll get to that. So the staff have become a family, and that's truly what RAM's about. So we are a family business. My brother and I run the business. We have core family values, and that's how we roll out that vision and passion to our staff. So they're also families. They also need to look after themselves, and hence we are a RAM family. So the positives and the negatives is the fact that depending on what you're moving. So if you're moving peanut butter and it breaks, you just get another peanut butter. You know, the real nuance of logistics in this country, the way we've run it for the last 30 years, is that we're constantly learning, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly getting new processes and procedures. And I think the biggest positive is the fact that we could roll out a process throughout the entire country, drop it on the handheld, and the driver actually manages the process. Whereas if you're having an outsourced model, you have no idea who's doing the delivery. You have no idea the process. And we got almost 25 POD rules. GRV, we do back door, we do front door, we do front door, back door, we do going into a pharmacy in a retail environment. So there's whole nuances of it's not just a drop and go kind of environment where some of the e-commerce players, get in and get out. It's a little bit more complex, but we feel that having the core competency of our staff and training the staff, and I think that's also very important. We train them throughout the entire process, constantly on the handheld, through communication. That we have now got a new slogan, and I don't know if you've noticed it. It's called A to B seamlessly. All right. Even though that we called RAM Hand-to-Hand Couriers, but our slogan now is A to B seamlessly, because everything we should be doing, it should be simple and seamless. And with that, we have effectively 4 values that we want to aspire. We have to have accountability, we're going to have teamwork, we're going to have professionalism, and we're going to have care. And those 4 quarters to the apple, want of a better word, make the apple. And without one, the other 3 don't work. So staff are critical to the excellence and the ability and our speed to market. And you're right, we are a hidden gem. Some people think we, what's the word? No, that's the word. I've got the word. Some people think that we're just not approachable, that may be too complicated. And it's simple. You move a parcel from A to B, no different to anybody else. The question is, how do we handle the parcel? How do we manage the parcel? How do we transport the parcel? And I think that's what really makes RAM.
I think the key word there is accountability. And I think a lot of the times it's very difficult for someone to be accountable for their role if there isn't an exchange of value in relation to it. And if you think about the team now, do you foresee that value around holding each other accountable for genuinely caring about that package? And even if you don't necessarily know exactly what's inside, you do know that someone else really cares and values it, hence they being the ones receiving it. So how is it that you've seen that level of holding each other accountable be quite pervasive across the team? Practically, what does that look like when the team are recognized for being accountable within their day-to-day job?
So the accountability is one of the cores, okay? Because without care, you can't have accountability. Without teamwork, you can't be accountable. And without professionalism, you can't actually deliver and to be accountable. So it's all connected. I think the journey of RAM and how we manage and how we've written our systems and they homegrown core systems. We haven't bought something off the shelf and we're not anything close to any other courier. We do a lot of internal control, validity and completeness and accuracy throughout the entire process that makes it become accountable. So we got a silo within our networks that we got. Every 6 hours, if a parcel doesn't move, it moves into another silo, which means there's a new process. And if it goes into the next silo, there's a worse process. And it goes to the end until somebody touches it, it comes back to 0. So we're running heavy systems. We did about, I think we finished on last year, and our financial year is December. We just did over 15 million packets in a year. So that's the size of what we're talking about. We're talking about scale. We're talking about, Black Friday. It's amazing. It's amazing for consumers. It's hard for the logistics guys. But we plan for Black Friday. We start Black Friday in June, and we collate all our data from our customers, and we actually start putting processes in place. So by the time Black Friday comes, it seems to be there's a blip, but it's okay. We had our best Black Fridays ever. Actually, funny enough, our biggest day ever was actually on the 17th of December, which actually was past Black Friday. It was just before coming into Christmas. So it was quite a unique eye-opener to see that people were still buying towards Christmas as opposed to not actually taking some of the Black Friday deals. But again, because and I think this is also, the word is elastic. So you get all these companies that bring in people in order to deal with volume and then drop them off, and then it's very, very, it's not a nice environment for somebody not to have a steady job. So that's the first thing. Okay? But when we talk about elasticity, we know exactly what our business can deal with. The volume of trucks that we have sitting on the site. We have between 200 and 300 vehicles that are sitting at hubs just waiting for capacity. And we have 2 drivers in each truck. So therefore we break the truck with the driver, and we do employ some temps over a period of time, but generally they're 100% employed by RAM. So we scale up and we scale down. But the whole mindset is keeping that, I'll call it, that animal hungry, because we got to feed an animal in order to make sure that it can purr at the best speed.
I love what you said there around accountability being the fact that there's far more actionable terms that really produce accountability. Because for me, there's that whole saying from Simon Sinek around values being not nouns, but they have to be verbs. Otherwise, no one will truly understand what they actually can do on a day-to-day basis to practice those values. People knowing that how they need to care for a package translates then overall to accountability being met together with the other elements. So I think that for me is a huge lesson there. And to quickly sidestep into another topic, what you mentioned earlier, which is a family business, right? So, this is literally a family business, founded by your dad and now, of course, led by the 2 sons, all right? And a lot of people have a narrative when it comes to family-run businesses is that, it's not possible, never mix business with family. But anecdotally, for me, I find that to be way too broad. But for you, in your experience, what you've lived thus far, what do you think is the reason why you've been able to succeed as a family in scaling this business versus maybe a scenario where family-run businesses do not scale or they do face problems from what you've seen?
So I think that when my dad started the business in 88, and then we started the domestic business together, I think my dad and I were almost on the same level. It wasn't that he was older than me and I was younger. Then when my brother joined about 2 years after I joined, we all start on the same level. So we call it the first generation. I think that's why it's successful, because it's still a first generation environment. I think the more complex families and children can bring a lot of complexities to a family business. But I think in our context, my brother and I come from the same mother and father, but we're uniquely different. Okay. And we've got skills that are uniquely different. And he deals with his skills and I deal with my skills. And we support each other. And I think that's the most important. We don't see that I'm more important than he is, and I'm the MD and he's the executive chairman. And it doesn't work like that. It's one family. It's one pot that we all need to understand that we got to make sure that we can achieve and set out our goals. And we've been extremely successful from our infancy, and we continually grow and we continually do what we need to do. I think the other aspect of our staff and my background, I'm an accountant. I'm not a logistics person, and I think I've grown into a logistics person. But I think that the real positive of what RAM is that majority of the staff that started with us actually didn't come from a logistics background. Sort of was homegrown, and we taught them. Other than a few sales people, not one person comes from another courier, which means that we are totally unique in our operation and we do what we have to do. So you don't have these people moving and jumping and jumping and jumping. We elevate people from within. We found their skills and we elevate them to the best possible what they could achieve out of themselves. So I think that's also to a degree, a bit of a family environment, because you want the best for your kid. You want the best to strive. And we're not looking for other people to come into the family. So we're keeping it within the family. And I think that's what makes RAM also very, very strong, in the sense that we believe in family culture, family environment, family. We all got families. We all got problems. These people have to drive, wake up early, travel long distances. We get you. It's a safe space. It's an environment that we work hard, we play hard, and we demand hard. So at the end of the day is that, accountability is critical. Number one, we have to be accountable for our actions. We have to be professional in our actions, which ultimately says we've got to care about you, the package, and your staff member. So, and then ultimately comes team. If we're not a team, we're not going to succeed. So, and I think also the aspect of, and that's why I said we got multiple hubs. Not one hub is better than the other hub. The one advantage of where RAM is extremely low structured. Okay, we have MD, we have a few directors, accountants, dropping down into ops, dropping down into hubs. So you don't have this hierarchy of people coming in, I'm more important than others. We get the job done. A parcel sent from Joburg to Cape Town, irrespective of when it's to Cape Town, it's got to be looked after like it's only Joburg. So again, it's the culture that we've festered, it's the culture that we've created, and it's the culture that makes RAM unique.
I mean, there was a goldmine of nuggets there. The first is when I started hearing you say or mention around validity, accuracy, and completeness. I was like, this guy's definitely from an accountant background. So yeah, kudos to that, because I picked on the VAC over there. All right. So then another takeaway that I get from there is the role that you have in a business is very much along the lines of people connecting it to a title, right? And as a consequence of them connecting it to a title, they basically are in a position where you then try look for that title, right? Or a junior level of that title, like, for example, a operations manager moving to, say, a head of logistics, right? So for me, what I find really useful is that exercise of looking at a role, not necessarily looking at the title, looking at truly what that type of person could be, and then looking even outside of the industry of a person that can bring in the skill sets, but not necessarily having done or held that title before. And that's what I'm picking out from what you've just described. Is that like kind of on the correct road there?
We have a true lively example of a lady that joined us who was a national national customer service manager. And our ops manager decided to leave our business after 10 years to move out the industry. And we found it very hard to find the culture and the person to come in to take over that role. And we elevated the national customer service manager to the national ops manager, because she was doing majority of the work. So we have a lady that runs our entire ops at RAM, just to let you know. It's not a man. It's an amazing woman. Her name is Lulu, and she does an amazing job. And she's been with us for a very long time. She understands the culture. She understands the people, and she understands what needs to get done. So, logistics is about planning. It's not waking up. We are dynamic, but we know what we're doing. So we don't wake up saying we need 20 tons from A to B. It doesn't work like that. Our business is about small parcel distribution. It's got to get into the hub and spoke environment. It's got to get into the line was on time. It's got to make the cutoff. So you've got to be fastidious about control the processes in order to make sure that the parcel at the other end comes out perfectly. So it's an amazing journey to think where we've come from and where we are today, and we still got much to learn. We're not the best, and I can tell you now we could achieve better synergies, savings if we apply IT and AI to our business, which we are doing at the moment. So our journey is just started, really.
And that's the mindset that I'm a big fan of, whereby it's not necessarily about winning. It's not like a finite game. It's like that infinite game where you're just wanting to get ahead, and getting ahead at a core is just getting ahead of where you were yesterday or last year as a business and as a team. So yeah, I fully agree with that. So if we were to go then into just in your professional life thus far, I mean, you've had to deal with quite a bit of challenges in growing a business naturally. But where have you sought to acquire advice from? Do you have a mentor? Is there a group of people, like a support system, in order to get through, especially the challenging times, but also to celebrate those great times?
I do belong to an organization called Wellbeing, which is level-headed CEOs that get together.
The Young Presidents Organization, is that it?
That's the one.
Good.
Anyway, I think you can bring a little bit of clarity to discussions with them, but they're not really in the core. They can give you advice about strategy. But I think the journey that we find ourselves on, and I think, as I said, my brother and I complement each other tremendously. We fight. Don't worry, we fight. But we make up, we kiss up, and we go home. You know what I mean? But it's good, strong fighting to get to a better place. And it's not a negative fight; it's a positive fight, because we come from different avenues with different approaches. So, my dad was a mentor. Unfortunately, he passed away 3 years ago. He was one of those old school. He also was an accountant. He looked at the nuts. He looked at the little, the pennies, the good old school mindset. He kept us on the straight and narrow. But I guess you have to spend money to make money. You can't just make money. It just doesn't work like that. So we look to people out there. You've read books on DHL. They went through a rough process, and they changed their business strategy. And a little bit what was in that book was a bit about RAM, how the trajectory was moving through the years. I think our biggest negative to logistics is risk, okay, in this country. And then comes the fact of the costs that are not really commensurate to courier, the likes of the load shedding, the likes of the roads, the likes of the strikes, the likes of the effect you can't do a retail delivery because they've got no power, therefore you can't get a GRV, which you've got to bring the parcel back. So those are nuances that we have to find. We know they're here, they're not going away. So you have to work them. And I think that's what makes South Africans exceptionally resilient, because we actually find ways to get around them, and we don't let it get to us. Because if it gets to us, then we're in the wrong business. So, do I have mentors? I got a lot of friends. A lot of them are quite influential in a lot of businesses, but you do pick and choose who you want to listen to. Logistics is an ever-evolving business. It's never going to be simple. There's so many touch points. There's so much that can happen. And it's not a closed network in the sense that you pick up and you deliver and that's it. It's just, you've got to make sure everything works all the time.
If we were to think then about, say, someone watching or listening to this, what would you think is an important piece of advice then around how you should focus on selecting or being more aware about who you're spending your time with? I mean, it's not necessarily that we know who is going to excel, in business or be influential in business, say if they're in their late 20s or maybe even earlier than that. But what should someone be very conscious about as they're growing in their professional life?
I think that the nuances of the youngsters today are all about instant gratification. Okay. And I think that if you're going to want to grow, you've got to listen, and you've got to be able to absorb. And if you don't agree, you still must absorb it and let it settle, because sometimes people don't agree, just let it. They just don't even listen to the noise that's around it. But you might wake up one day and say, "God, I remember speaking to this guy 5 years ago, and he made a nuance, but I still remembered it." Okay, so I think you've got to want to learn. I think that's the key here, and you want to grow. Uh, this is the biggest problem today, because it's all about now. You want to get on ChatGPT. You want to get when we had to write essays, we had to write it from scratch. And if you weren't great at English, you had a terrible essay. I think if somebody wants to get ahead, they need to understand that you can learn from anyone, from the CEO to the janitor. You can do that. No one is below you, no one's above you. You're all individuals, and you all can believe in yourself, and you can achieve. I also think it's important to when you're looking at something, is the competitive landscape is highly sometimes unattractive, but the competitive landscape is all about how you fit in. So if you find the right niche, if you find the right process, you find the right, go for it. If you fail, you start again. But I think my 2 cents is just listen, and you can learn, or whoever's around you. And if you could be listening to somebody that's really saying the wrong things, but you're learning it's the wrong things, and therefore you will know it's the wrong things, not necessarily, So what I'm saying is, you can take the good out of a bad person too, if you want to.
I love a saying where Jeff Bezos, he speaks about how I can disagree with you, but I can commit. So, if we do disagree, but it's something that you're going to hold yourself accountable to, then I can disagree with you, but I still will commit, because it's not about winning every single battle. It's actually about the collective as a whole. So I think definitely that is practical, and also around the fact that conflict, you refer to your brother and you're fighting, but if we look at that's you being able to experience a conflict, a disagreement with each other, but knowing how to resolve the conflict. If I look back to my, let's call it, high school years, and even in my university years, no one really teaches you how to resolve conflict. They know how, they share with you how you can create a specific opinion, or how you can do certain research and then present that. But now you're presented with someone having conflicting opinions or ideas around it. How do you actually resolve it? And for you, what would you say then, that you've learned in those fights, in those disagreements? How do you keep that level-headedness, whether it be in that moment or afterwards, to make sure that the conflict was truly resolved and it's not now purely just being, pushed under the carpet?
Again, it's one and the same company. We eat out of the same product, right? So, if you think that you're bigger than somebody else and you want to make it personal, well, then you're going to break your business. And that's why some of these family businesses don't continue, because I'm in charge and you've got to listen to me. Okay? So it's not that. I think the most important is, we are family, and families get on with families, irrespective if there are disagreements or there's upheavals or downhills. But at the end of the day, you can only count on family. So, and we are the same blood. So yeah, it's robust. I wouldn't call it we fight. It's robust conversations. We have, and I think at the end of the day is that the strengths that we bring to the party is that he's got his strengths and I've got my strengths, and he pushes the boundary and I push the boundary, and then we get the best out of both of us. But at the end of the day, we kiss up and we're family. And I think that's the key here. It's somewhat difficult if you make statements, once you make a comment and you make it personal, it's hard. All right. This is not personal. This is business. Yes, we live in a family, and yes, we take it home, and we're always talking about business, and we talk. But at the end of the day, what stays I think what's important is what stays at the office stays at the office. And what goes home goes home. So when I get home, even though that I'm in a family business, try not to speak about it, because you don't want it to fester and continue. But we get on with it, and we learn to deal with it. Maybe not the first day, but the second day we get back together, and it's about growing. It's about letting people know that you're there and you want to be heard. And if it's good enough to be heard, then it gets heard. And I think that's the key.
So for me, what I draw from that as well is the fact of the saying, it's not personal, it's business. But if we look at that practically, what again, you tell me if I'm wrong here and how you experience it. But for me, of course, life, everything is personal in the sense that we're involved in it, in those situations. But what is a key distinguished element there is the fact that it's not personal because I'm not attacking you, like, or who you are. I'm not challenging who you are and what you believe in. It's more challenging your work and critiquing your work, that output. Is that kind of how you also think about it?
Yes. No, I wouldn't call it like that. Listen, yes, everything is personal to us, but the question is, you must make sure that you don't cross the line about bringing a personal conversation into a business. So you don't. I would never put my brother down because he couldn't do an Excel file, for argument's sake. That's just wrong. But yet he's got the strengths of doing many more things than I can. So, you just try and not cross the line. You cross the line, and I think that's the biggest problem about even in friendship. When friends cross the line and make it uncomfortable, in a conversation, the friendship's finished. So you've got a fine line to make sure you don't cross. That's the key.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you think about what you've describing around family, I mean, I literally wrote an article a couple of months ago around distinguishing between family and a professional sports team, of how to view a business, right? So how do you then, if you embrace that family view, how then do you have those difficult conversations with team members in the company when they have acted against the business and they are going to need to now be dismissed or go through the disciplinary process? Like, how is that view of then family challenged in those moments where you most likely going to have to exit someone?
We mustn't confuse employment and rules and conduct with family. I can tell you, as the MD of RAM, if I came to work and I was over the limit, because we breathalyze all our staff every day because they're professional drivers in effect, anyone that comes to work that's over the limit gets disciplined and exited. I would lose my job as the MD of RAM. So it doesn't, because I'm in charge, I can have different rules. I got a guy that we had some people that worked for us for many years, and they crossed the line. They didn't follow the rules. They got disciplined and they got exited. That doesn't mean I don't like them as a person, but you can't have different rules for different people. With 3,000 staff, you've got to have. Our HR department is incredible. It is strong. It's vibrant. It's no nonsense, and it's fair. We've been taken to the CCMA for many, many, many times, and we haven't lost one because we follow procedure. And that is the core of RAM. We follow the rules. We don't buck the rules or cut corners to achieve outcomes. And I think that's also where some of the other guys do, because they're trying to make a margin, or they're trying to make it quick, or they're trying to do something. Speed limit is critical. We don't break the speed limit where possible. I mean, I can tell you now, some drivers do, and they get disciplined because we watch that speed. But you can't have it good on one and not good on. You've got to follow a set of rules, and those rules govern the way we are accountable, and which governs the rules of how we interact with our people, the professionalism we got to bring to the party. You won't have one of our drivers in a pair of shorts and a stuff. It doesn't work like that. They've got the uniforms, and yes, they've got to be, they've got to look good, because we have a brand. We spent many, many millions of rands on our brand in order to make sure that it continues, and we will not allow anybody to tarnish it. So rules are rules. You buck the rules, there's the door.
Well, your marketing has definitely worked, because I promise you, ingrained in my head is RAM, Hand-to-Hand Couriers. I promise you that is ingrained in my head since I was a kid. So yeah, it's definitely worked. So you've definitely got a brand there that is definitely cross-generational as well. So last one, Graeme, before we end the conversation, and thank you so much, because it has truly been a lot of wisdom that you're sharing here. If we look forward now to RAM going ahead, what is your and your team's focus around how to make sure that you are as adaptable, as elastic when it comes to all these challenges around the difficulties of logistics? What is your narrow focus now around the business and where you're scaling next? Because I've heard about the international expansion or those relationships that you've done. Where is this focus for the next couple of years?
So it's a hard crystal ball to gaze into. Okay. I think the nuance of on demand is such a new and incredible service that's out there that has truly spoilt the market. But infrastructurally, what on demand has done is made it very simple to move a loaf of bread from a Checkers to your house. Okay. But on demand in South Africa is a very difficult animal to deal with. And I can, the other day I was looking for an Uber and I couldn't find one. Have you noticed, like 5 years ago, Uber used to be so many more Ubers, and now there's like a limit. And it's all driven by the fact that there's no money in the market and no one wants to be an Uber driver anymore because Uber's taking the crux of the business. But at the end of the day, the driver says, well, I don't want to do it. And that's a point-to-point environment. So our business is a hub and spoke environment, and there is a nuance of point-to-point which we're looking at. We're looking at, we've opened up a go-to hub, which is more like a kiosk, which we're going to start rolling out just to try get some retail environment. And I think our core is, I think South Africa's in for quite a rude awakening. I think the fuel's going up tomorrow on 56 cents. I think we might even lose a goer, and that could also cause major issue. We are looking internally to actually see where we can actually become more efficient in our current infrastructure to be much stronger. That's our core right now. It's where we believe that trying to feed our current infrastructure and our current business and our clients into the same model and the same infrastructure. So I think that's where we're thinking about. There are new warehouses that we're looking at, smaller decentralized warehouses to be more efficient and be more agile to do this point to point. But again, you got to make sure there's enough juice in the lemon to squeeze in order to, this is a family business. This is not the post office that gets bailed out by 2 billion rand every time they decide to make a bad business model. We're not scared of the market. We're definitely not scared of the market, but we're just trying to see where we can actually streamline our current infrastructure to get more out of it. And I think just feed more into the network. I think our network is exceptionally strong. 15 million packages is not a small task. And we grew by at least, 30% last year. So I guess it's about ensuring we achieve our goals, which we set up to that we've put on the paper that we're going to get to.
Yeah, focusing on the controllables, because man, there's a lot of uncontrollables out there. Well, Graeme, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate the conversation. And I know a lot of people are going to find this valuable and also now get to know a bit more behind the scenes of the RAM team and just the phenomenal culture that you've built and of course, evolved over time. So I think hopefully a couple of more customers can come and there may be even big customers like, I think, have you still got Vodacom? Yeah, exactly. So I heard about
24 years now they've been with RAM.
That's phenomenal. I heard about that whole inflection point where you got that Vodacom deal, and then it really kind of just proved that you were well prepared.
Listen, I can tell you, just talking about that, we truly are partners between us and Vodacom and a lot of our customers, and they help us grow and we help them grow. No matter how big you are and how small, we're here as a solution partner to make sure that you can achieve what you set out to. It's purely about service. And I think there's a very, very scary nuance between, is service more important than price? And in a market which is shrinking, in a market that's in a rand denominator, that's got a lot of inputs, a lot of people are looking for price and not looking at service, but ultimately service is what's going to grow turnover. So again, it's a very, very difficult thing to lay on. And we need to make sure that we set out with the correct goals, and we achieve our goals, and we move on to the next one. We're not the biggest by numbers. We're not. We understand. RAM understands exactly what is required from our customers, and our customers come to RAM because they know peace of mind is critical. Peace of mind in South Africa is something where people can sleep at night and let us do the work. When we got 80,000 shipments out on a day, and everybody's sleeping. We're working. We're making sure that the nuts and bolts are in place, and the vehicles are right, and they're serviced, and our staff actually live the RAM brand, and that's really what RAM's about.
It reminds me of that whole, I think it's a triangle that they do where you have to choose two of three of this triangle, which is, I think it's efficiency, it's quality, and then it's price. And it sounds like you've definitely gone for the efficiency and the quality, which I think is testament to what's happened thus far. So yeah, thank you so much, Graeme. Really appreciate it.